The Oklahoma Sooners going into the 2024 inaugural SEC season, they're going to need help on and off the field. And they had a really good 2024 recruiting cycle. In fact, there are some surprising players out of the 2024 cycle that are making a splash during early spring ball practices. It's something we got to talk about because if you're an Oklahoma fan, there might have been some concerns in your past at this position, but this year, it might not be a concern at all. Guys, before we dive into it, I want to hear from y'all. So make sure you're joining the discussion. Jump it down in the comments below, giving me your thoughts on what you think about this specific position and do you think this player can break out? Additionally, if you haven't already hit that like, hit the subscribe button because I'm trying to get to 8,000 subscribers by May, and I want you guys to be a part of the channel here. All right, let's talk about it. So, Michael Hawkins Jr., four-star quarterback out of Frisco Emerson, is making a splash during early spring ball practices. He got on here as an early enrollee, and there was a lot of hopes that, hey, maybe post-Jackson Arnold era, Hawkins could contend for the starting spot. And even while Jackson Arnold's here, Michael Hawkins could be a very viable backup. You also got a guy in Brandon Zerbrug who you looked at and said, hey, maybe this guy pushes Michael Hawkins and maybe fights for backup spot as well. Although Zerbrug hasn't impressed as much as Michael Hawkins, you look at Michael Hawkins and you go, oh, I was on with Jason over at Hall of Fame Sports, and one of the things that we talked about was how Gabe Eichert talked about how Michael Hawkins, as a true freshman, looks really good in these practices. And the question that was being posed was, could Michael Hawkins supplant Jackson Arnold for that starting role if, for say, Jackson Arnold goes down with an injury and never give that job back? And that's a really interesting take and a question to ask because you saw Oklahoma's moves in the offseason tailored to give Jackson Arnold as much help as possible, whether that was weapons around him with wide receiver or running back, but also as a backup quarterback, because we saw Oklahoma go out there and get a 7-year senior in Casey Thompson, originally from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, who's played at Texas, Nebraska, Florida Atlantic. Like, Casey Thompson's been around the ringer a couple times. And you bring him in, who would be a very serviceable backup. And we're not talking about Casey Thompson being the backup. We're talking about Michael Hawkins being the backup and then potentially taking the job from Jackson Arnold. So this is where I want y'all's opinion, because I personally don't think Michael Hawkins takes the job from Arnold, at least this year. Maybe next year, if Arnold goes down with an injury and Hawkins is just that dude, yeah, maybe that happens. I just don't see it, especially if Arnold is going out there, taking care of business, delivering the throws, making the plays that you expect him to make. I don't see how Oklahoma, or at least Seth Luttrell and this current staff that we have, would do that to a 5-star quarterback. Mind you, the only 5-star quarterback you've gotten since Lincoln Riley has left Oklahoma. Remember, when Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma to go to USC, the media and everybody told you, Oklahoma's not getting another 5-star quarterback. For Oklahoma to get another elite quarterback, that's just not going to happen. Oklahoma's probably not going to have another. They acted like, Lincoln Riley was the end-all be-all to Oklahoma's Heisman winners, which it's like we didn't win Heisman quarterbacks before Lincoln Riley, but that's to each his own. So the question is, can Michael Hawkins supplant Jackson Arnold at any time this year, whether he comes in as a backup or just straight up beats him for the job? It's an intriguing question. And he'd have to be better than Caleb Williams, in my opinion. I don't see it. Caleb Williams was a generational talent. I don't think Michael Hawkins is there yet. Michael Hawkins might be able to get there one day, but he's just a true freshman. I don't think it's fair for us to put those expectations on a true freshman quarterback to go and lead the Oklahoma Sooners, just like it wasn't fair for us to do that to Caleb Williams when he was here. And I'm sure Michael Hawkins is really good, and I'm sure he's performing well. in these practices. But to say that Jackson Arnold, a guy that is going to be second year in the program, a guy that Oklahoma has basically given this job, like handed this job to and said, you're our future, to say that he's only going to play a couple games and then Hawkins would potentially come in and take the job, it just seems crazy to me. So this is where I want you guys to chime in. I want you guys to let me know if it's crazy, because when I heard this and when we were talking about it, I knew this was something that we'd have to discuss here. Now, I do look at some of the other quarterbacks in this room, like a General Booty, who you're hearing great things about right now in spring. You're hearing General Booty's making the throws. Like maybe he's put in the work during the offseason to contend as the backup quarterback. Now, Brandon Zerbrug, obviously, he hasn't been as stellar as Michael Hawkins or maybe even General Booty. But Brandon Zerbrug is a guy that I expect to, whether he makes an impact here at Oklahoma or goes somewhere else, I expect him to be a solid backup quarterback somewhere. Brandon Zerbrug just needs that college touch, maybe to hit the weight room a little bit more, maybe get conditioned in a college program. But I think he's a good prospect. And I think if he stays at Oklahoma, I think he could have a chance to play. I don't think he starts. I think he has a chance to contend for a backup spot. The question is, if you're Oklahoma and you start stacking this quarterback talent, if Michael Hawkins is that good, and I say this because you have Kevin Sperry coming in 2025 right now, and then you've got other quarterbacks in 26 that Oklahoma is definitely in. At one point or another, are you going to be able to retain all that quarterback talent? So I'm interested to see exactly what happens with Oklahoma in the quarterback position. I'm interested to hear what y'all say about Michael Hawkins. Oklahoma definitely needs the help going into the 2024 season, because we know the SEC likes to play a physical style of ball, and the chance of your quarterback going down, it's always out there in the SEC. I mean, it's definitely out there in any conference, but the SEC especially, where they have the most elite defensive linemen, the most elite edge rushers, the most elite linebackers, right? Your quarterback might be a little bit more prone to those injuries. How's Jackson Arnold going to hold up when he gets hit? I think there's going to be a lot of questions. Oklahoma needs the help, but I definitely think they're getting the answers. Hey, and if you've got too many good quarterbacks in your room, that's probably a good thing, right? I mean, I don't see how having too many good quarterbacks in your room is a bad thing. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like, you hit that subscribe button, join the discussion, jump down in the comments below, give me your thoughts. Do you think Michael Hawkins could be the starter over Jackson Arnold at any point of Jackson Arnold's OU football career?